Aloha, folks. It's Antonio with HypnosisProductReviews.com, and let me adjust my camera a little bit like that. That should be better. I'm interviewing James Tripp all the way from, I don't know anymore where you're even from anymore. You're moving everywhere.
Yeah, I'm in LA at the moment. We're at Venice Beach, and but from the UK, from just north of London in the UK.
Yeah, so you're still holding on to your accent, which is a good thing.
That's right. Yeah, I've been going through too many different areas to lose my accent, so it's my only point of reference.
Working in tourism industry in Hawaii, I'm guessing that my prediction, I think I've seen you write some about this, is a lot of Americans, they're not too good with the auditory picking out accents. I don't know why. I can pick out accents.
Yeah.
Is that something that you found?
Yeah, I found mostly, there's not so much in LA, but certainly in Hawaii, most people were getting us pegged as Australian.
I hear that all the time, but like what I like to do, if I hear somebody, if I know they're an Australian, for example, just to get them into my activity booth, I'm like, hey, what part of New Zealand are you from? I turn around because, Aussies and Australians, they have that kind of love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
So they always come in to correct me, and by that time, I've got them sold on something.
Yeah. You could do the same with the Scots. If you're a Scottish person come by, just say, hey, whereabouts in England are you from? Hey, that will get a reaction.
Oh yeah, that's even worse than the Aussies and the Kiwis.
Yeah. Or you get the same with Canada and the US, don't you? If you say to a Canadian, whereabouts in the US are you from? That doesn't tend to go down so well as well.
We'll say the educated part.
Yeah.
The traveler part. And so the last time, let me try to readjust this. So the last time I interviewed you, God, that was 2011, I think. 2012.
Yeah, it could well have been. It was a while ago. I know that.
So, if you can give me my audience a brief up-to-date history. What's changed from James Tripp back then to James Tripp now?
What's changed? I guess one of the things is I'm a bit more outside of the hypnosis box than I was before. I still love hypnosis, find it fascinating, use what some people would call hypnosis, other people would say it wasn't hypnosis in the client work that I do, but I tend to do more developmental coaching now, which is longer term stuff rather than doing issue specific stuff with regard to the kind of personal work that I do. So that's the big difference. Obviously at the moment we're traveling around the world, so I haven't been doing live trainings, which is something that's been a staple of what I do for many years. But when we get back to the UK, we will be doing live trainings. And I'm probably actually going to move on from doing weekend workshop-based trainings to doing longer, deeper, more skills-intensive trainings. In terms of, when I say intensive, I mean in terms of going deep, really developing people's skills. So I've got a kind of ethos shift around how I'm going to be doing trainings when I go back to the UK.
Okay, so is it more of like a growth, like a kind of growth mindset? How do I say? Is it more? I've seen a couple other people who talk about like the fixed mindset versus growth mindset. I know you also talk to me about people getting too hung up in the process.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly. I know there's different ways to approach doing change work or developmental coaching work with people. I come from a hypnosis and NLP background, and there's a real focus on patterns there in people and changing patterns. But a few years ago, I ended up being coached for 9 months or a year, depending on how you count it. I did 9 months across a year by a guy called Steve Chandler, who he's written about 30 books, self-development books, and Steve is a really smart, switched-on guy. And I experienced a lot of personal shifts and changes in the time I was working with Steve. But Steve doesn't have any kind of NLP or hypnosis background or any process-orientated background at all. He's all about, he's what I would call wisdom coaching. You know, there are certain ideas, there are certain attitudes, there are certain mindsets, there are certain ways of being in the world which are effective at generating certain results. And one of the things about NLP and often a lot of hypnosis work as well is it treats everybody as very, very individual. It's like, your map is not the same as my map, and there's this kind of egalitarian spirit between whichever model of the world you have, that's all good so long as it's serving you. And I guess Steve's stuff comes from a different background to say, yeah, we're not making any rules about how people should be, but there are general ways of being in the world which are more effective than others, depending on, what you want to achieve. So I learned a lot from Steve and a lot of other places about human beings, how they work, effective ways of being in the world. So the work that I do now, it depends on who I'm working with, depends on the context, but it's going to be a mix of the kind of process-based stuff, which is more from my hypnosis and NLP background, and more of the wisdom-based stuff. And I want to make it clear, when I say wisdom-based stuff, I don't want to be coming across arrogant, like as if I've got wisdom and I know the ways of the world. I don't. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I go out there in the world, I try stuff on, but I've got a lot of really cool stuff from Steve Chandler and some other people as well, peripherally.
Sorry for interrupting. When you say wisdom-based, is it kind of like a gut kind of intuitive thing? Not like a psychic per se, but when you say wisdom, is it like a kind of a gut thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big element as well. I often talk about two different modes of mind, which different people would call conscious, unconscious, left brain, right brain, caught up in your thinking versus being connected to your wisdom. This comes up a lot in different traditions. It has done for thousands of years. So in a sense, there's two things going on here. There's a different way of processing. And Milton Erickson was onto this, right? He had his therapeutic trance. He realized that when you take people outside of their narrow reality tunnels, they connect more fully with who they are in totality. They can do more useful generative work, which is Erickson's generative trance work. But aside from that, when I say wisdom, what I basically mean is there are many, many different ways of seeing the world, many, many different ways that we can see ourselves, many different ways of framing and making sense. Some are just more effective than others. Some give us an edge and some undermine us. And that's the way of the world. If I drop into a personal trance or reality tunnel about a certain aspect of life, that particular trance or reality tunnel will either serve me in engaging effectively in that context, or it will undermine me. So for me, wisdom is any kind of reality tunnel, any kind of trance that serves you in connecting effectively with the world. It's not real necessarily, but it's a trance, a way of being that serves you in connecting. I call that wisdom, and I don't, it's a way of seeing things, a way of understanding things that creates very effective patterns of engagement. That's what I would call wisdom.
This is why I admire a lot of your work. You're, how you call yourself, I've heard you say you call yourself like a reality shaper. You're basically, you want to create your own world. You don't want to fit into somebody else's box. Yeah,
I mean, that's a big thing for me. I'm naturally rebellious. I don't want to fit into other people's box. And also I recognize that if you're going to engage effectively with the world around you, you can't just ignore it and deny it. You have to find a way of engaging with it that works. But I like to find my way of engaging with it that works, that suits me and kind of serves my purposes. But I'm very much fascinated by how people do life, how they do their reality. How does each individual person render up the world? And it's interesting coming out here to LA, for example. I sat down the other day outside a coffee shop with a guy who's making a movie and another guy who's building a virtual protest app, which is a crazy thing, so he's in tech, and another guy who's an artist, and another guy who's a fantastic coach, coming from different areas. And just this conversation that was kicking off was insane. And how generative it was. Stuff was coming out of this, stuff's moving forward, stuff's being created, contacts are being shared. It's a really creative environment. I don't mean creative as in like, hey man, we're coming up with great ideas. I mean creative as in creating. Stuff happening in the moment, projects moving forward, real things. Now, the interesting thing for me is being able to sit there and listen to these people speak. And as a hypnotist, neurolinguist, whatever you want to think of me as, or I want to think of me as, I'm listening to where they're speaking from. How are they organizing their reality? Because I want to know what their reality tunnels are, because how they're organizing their reality in terms of conceptualizing which is going to be largely unconscious for them. People don't see what they're seeing the world through. But I want to get the structure of these people's reality tunnels, because this is the stuff I'm interested in. These are high performers. These are creators. These are people that make awesome stuff happen. And, how do they do this? How do they do this effectively? It's a rare opportunity for me to sit down with a whole bunch of these people doing this stuff. Now, all the stuff I've learned from NLP about modeling, about linguistic structures, all of this kind of stuff is gold in that moment. Because 10 years ago, I'd have sat there going, oh my God, these people are incredible. And having no way of drawing anything useful from that about how they're structuring their reality. So when I talk about reality shapers, I'm talking about people who have ways of being in the world that enable them to create the kinds of results they want to create out there. They bring things into the world that didn't exist before. So there's, shaping reality in that respect, but they're also shaping reality from the inside out, because how they show up, how they engage, how they think about things, how they frame things, that's the thing that makes a difference. Because we were going to talk about self-talk, right?
Yeah.
So if you take somebody with, let's frame it as crappy self-talk, and you extract that crappy self-talk from somebody and go up to some kind of high achiever, some sort of entrepreneur, go up to Elon Musk and implant that crappy self-talk into Elon Musk's head, Elon Musk will cease to be Elon Musk, and he will cease to create the things that he creates. Right? So what we're doing inside of our head, that shapes everything in terms of our experience of each moment and what we see as possible inside of each moment and what direction of engagement we connect with inside of each moment. So this is the stuff that's fascinating. It's all hypnosis to me, you see, because we're all in various trances. We live in the world through trances. So those guys outside that coffee shop, they're in these they're in these creating trances. They're engaging and they're creating in the moment through high performance trances, if you like, that work in particular ways. So I love anything like that. I'm a geek for that.
Yeah, I love this stuff. You actually mentioned something on Facebook. You want to talk about it briefly, and then we can get into the whole thing about self-talk, unpacking self-talk. We were talking about a project you got coming up where you're going to be, I believe, interviewing all the reality shapers. Yeah,
basically that's what I've been thinking about doing this for at least 3 years. I'm like, I'm going to get round to doing this podcast or whatever. But now is the time to do it. Now is the time to do it. And I'm doing that for pretty much selfish reasons as well. Because I like to have conversations with people who have interesting ways of being in the world and effective ways of being in the world, because I want to learn something about how they do reality, because I can use that stuff for myself. And at the same time, while I'm doing these interviews, I'm very happy to share them with the world so that other people can benefit, they can listen in. And I want to be pretty discerning about this. So I've had a number of people, I put this thing up, I'm going to do this thing, and people have said, interview me. And I'm not interviewing people because they asked to be interviewed. And I'm not going to interview people because I think it's going to be a commercially cool thing to interview them. I'm going to interview people that intrigue me. And that's it, So anyone who wants to be interviewed, you're going to have to intrigue me first. It's no good to just ask and say I do cool things. I want to get intrigued first. So that's what I'm doing. And yeah, they're all reality shapers. They're all people who are carving out their own way of being in the world, their own way of engaging with the world. Taking the path less traveled, creating the path less traveled.
And if you need a copywriter to do any writing for you, I think I know a copywriter that can help you with it.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing, copywriters. I always do my own copy. I always do. I don't really enjoy doing it, especially, but I always do it.
Writing sucks.
Yeah, it's a process. It's something. I just want to move on with stuff and I get it out there. But I'm aware that the more I skimp with that kind of thing, we've talked about marketing before. I have a love-hate relationship with marketing.
I'm not going to mention names, but I think we talked in the past that we were talking about doing a webinar in the past on something. I think you've been soured on marketing. from just people in general?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a yin-yang thing. I see the value in marketing. The thing is with marketing is a skilled marketer can sell shit to people. Forgive my language. I don't know what the rating is on your podcast. You may have to beat that out. But
You see my Facebook post. Don't worry.
okay, so this is the thing, right? A skilled marketer can sell crap. You don't actually have to have a good quality product to get people excited if you know how to press people's buttons and all of this kind of stuff. Now, that's both a strength and a weakness for me. In that, you know, I think also people out there in the world, a lot of people who are a little bit more discerning, start to see the patterns of marketing. So I don't like to do anything that looks too much like classic marketing. And on the flip side of it, I've got this crazy idea that if you just do something that's of high quality and you share some of that high quality with people, they'll go, yep, I'm in. Now, that's actually naive. You know, I'm naive about that. I know I'm naive about that because I just had the experience recently. The tetralemma that I put out is my worst selling product ever. Worst selling product ever. I happen to think it's the best thing I've ever done. And I've had a number of people come back to me and go, whoa, James, that's insane. That's the best thing you've ever done. I've also had some people come back and go, James, I don't understand what you're talking about with that tetralemma stuff. You know, so it hits at a certain level, but I think it's the best damn thing I've ever done. And you know, but what the hell? I went completely away from any marketing. If you look at all the stuff I've done in the past, it's all got sexy titles. You know, rapid induction rituals, you know, the hypnosis mastery program, the no-fail protocol. Sexy titles. This one's called Transforming Realities with the Tetralemma. Oh, boring title, doesn't mean anything to anybody, right? So, you know, I drifted so far from the marketing paradigms. I'm going, yeah, man, I'm just going to do this thing. But nobody got what the hell it was about.
You know, we were talking about Bill Hicks yesterday, one of my favorite comedians and all-around genius.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen when he was talking about marketers? He's like, oh, I know what you're doing, Bill. You're going for the anti-marketing dollar.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite bits.
Yeah, it's cool. Bill Hicks was an incredible guy, incredible thinker, really, really sharp. I love Bill Hicks.
I don't go too off on a tangent, but they're supposed to be making a biopic about him. It's been in the works for a long time, and they were going to use who is that god-awful actor? Russell Crowe was supposed to play Bill Hicks.
Oh no, that's not right. That's wrong.
I think they canned the project. Hopefully they canned it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't have Russell Crowe doing Bill Hicks. That's not going to work at all. If you're going to get someone doing Bill Hicks, you need a real method actor, someone who can really get inside the skin. There's so much video out there of Bill Hicks. It's not really open to interpretation.
You know who would actually be good? You know who that crazy conspiracy theorist is? You know, Alex Jones?
I don't know, no.
I'll show you a picture of him later. They actually, I think they did some comedy bits together years ago when Hicks was still alive, but Alex Jones kind of looks like them. He's batshit crazy.
Mm.
Oh, and you're asking about the quality of the podcast with cussing. I'm planning on having Melissa Tears on. You know how she likes to drop F-bombs. So,
yeah.
So you're in company.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'll still try and keep a lid on it. The other thing about the tetralemma, incidentally, that was my sweariest program to date. My language has dropped through the ground with that one. I put a language warning on it when I put it out into the world.
We'll get to this whole self-talk thing in a bit. So I got so many questions. It's been forever since I've talked to you. What I was gonna say, I had a brain fart. Damn it, that happens when I talk to hypnotists. I just tend to zone out. Oh, I know. For self-help, I know you put a lot of trainings out teaching people how to do change work. Mm-hmm. Do you have any programs where people can actually unpack their own problems? There's a lot of things like self-hypnosis, like close your eyes, hypnotize, blah, 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 give yourself suggestions, which doesn't help you to really pull apart your own problems. Because if we're in our own problems, I've got my own issues. Sometimes it's hard when you're in that tunnel to see your stuff.
Yeah, it's one of my. I come back to this over and over again. Some people have heard me say this before. People are very poor witnesses to their own processes. And it's very hard to see our own stuff. It's very hard to see what we're doing the world through. You know, you can't see what you're seeing the world through. So doing self-transformative stuff is extremely challenging, and that's where I come from. So that's my background. Before I was working with other people, here you go, zooming in. Before I was ever working with other people, I was working with myself. That's why I got into this stuff, you know, because I wanted to change things about who I was and how I was and all of this kind of thing. So I have made some attempts to teach this in different ways. And the problem that I always come up against is I'm pretty skilled at doing self-change. I don't mean to be blowing my own trumpet, but that's my thing. That's what I do first and foremost. But I don't have a simple formula for doing it. And every time I keep coming up with this challenge, that every time I've put something out there in the world, it's usually too complex for people. And they go, it's too much, it's too much. And if I simplify it...
I would imagine your skill set, definitely your years and years of doing change work and studying this stuff has definitely helped you to do your own stuff.
Oh, for sure, yeah. For sure. I mean, I catch myself out. There's a number of tools I use for myself all the time. And it's not that and they become second nature. So I'm often spotting things. I'm often paying attention to things. And I shift things. I'm very interested in how people structure their reality. And I am most interested in how I'm structuring mine in any given moment. So, and it's not always obvious because you don't see the structure because you're embedded in it. That makes it a trick. So skills around embedding, maneuvering in relation to your own stuff. I have put stuff out there before. I did something that Judy Reese facilitated me through or interviewed me through called Self-Hypnosis Without Trance. I did something called Self-Change Artistry way back. I've never been happy with any of the stuff that I did, and I still haven't cracked how to do it. And I think one of the things is it's actually a reasonably high-level skill set. It's like I come from a martial arts background. So I trained for years in martial arts. And if somebody said to me, James, can you give me like a 5-step formula for having a high level of martial arts skill in this moment right now? You know, or a 5-step formula for winning a fight. It would be, I could come up with one, but it wouldn't really be what I would do, and it wouldn't work in the same way.
I've got the 5-step formula. Go to America, get guns. That's about.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Maybe so. But then, you know, you just take the whole thing to another level. Then you just got guns. You go, well, how do I defend against guns? You get nukes. You get the whole thing. The whole thing spirals. I have to say, you know, it's an interesting thing. The difference in culture coming to the US from, you know, UK, Australia, this kind of thing, because you've got this kind of gun culture, and there are certain things which, you know, guns and healthcare, those are the two crazy things. It seems to be many of the people I speak to in the US would be like, are you insane? That would be nuts to have universal healthcare. In the UK, you ask anybody, nobody would vote for it to be taken away. Maybe a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of people. You know, nobody, rich, poor, whatever. It's just something like, it just seems like a no-brainer of a good idea. Why? Because we've always grown up inside of it, right? And on the flip side, the other thing that seems like a no-brainer, good idea to the vast majority of the population of the UK is the fact that people don't get shot by their kid pulling their gun out of the drawer, you know. But I know many, yeah. You've been shot by your kid pulling the gun out of the drawer? It's terrible.
It's kind of weird where it's like, oh my God, I got shot. Go to the hospital. Oh, you don't have insurance. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I tell people we don't necessarily have to ban guns. I'm like, we can have common sense legislation. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hypnotists because you and I both know there are a lot of batshit crazy hypnotists that believe in all kinds of weird conspiracy theories, and the new world order is trying to come down on us. I'm like, well, so far they haven't come down. Pretty sure we're.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's the interesting thing. You know, the crazy world of hypnosis. I love hypnosis, but sometimes I need to just back off from the world of hypnosis because there's every brand of crazy in there. So probably including me. I mean, people will think I'm crazy too.
I've got some crazy. Now, since we've been talking, let's say, actually I'll show you, not to do a plug for Steve Andreas, but I actually got a book recently. And me, I've always had a hard time with self-talk. I mean, I haven't had a hard time changing self-talk. I'm good at doing crappy self-talk. It's an easy skill most people can do. This book's helped me a little bit, doing different things, the submodality shifts of, the book talks about, like, hearing the direction when the voice is coming from, maybe location, and then hearing if it's coming this way, if it's going that way. So I've been doing some of those shifts, and I'm starting to notice a difference with it. How do I say it? Like, me, I've got my own problems where I've always had a really hard time changing, where I'm like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I talk about, I'm going to use this technique. But for me, I get so overwhelmed trying to change. What kind of, how could you unpack something like that for me? How easy could you, like, I can't unpack it. I'm sure I could, but it's hard when you're looking at the shit.
Yeah, one of the things that, one of my basic maxims about, whether it be self-change or doing change work with other people, is a distinction. It's get through versus get into. Now, most people are, and this applies to many areas of life, not just self-change or doing change work with other people. Most people want to get through stuff, right? They want to have changed, past tense. They've got all this list of stuff they don't like about themselves, and they just like, and they see the big list and it's overwhelming, so they get their head down and they try and plow through. But they're trying to get through the change. And while people are trying to get through the change, they can never really be present with what it is they want to change in a way they need to be in order to change it. So I often advocate that people get into change. They get into change, that they chunk it small. So it's like saving a dollar a day. That's as good as it gets if you're trying to claw in thousands in one go. So I'm pretty slowed down with the self-change stuff I do. I've usually got some kind of self-change project on the go. And I'll be spending time and spending some consciousness with it. And I'm not rushing to get through it. I don't want to be attached to an outcome. I don't want to have neediness like I've got to change this now. Because I found the more I tried to change and the more quickly in the past, the more it would slow things down. And the more I slow things down and the more present I become, the more things shift quickly. So I think there's a quality of consciousness that it's useful to bring. I think, the Buddhists are onto it with the idea of equanimity, being present with stuff without judgment. Most people cannot do that. They've already judged the thing they want to change as bad. They're already struggling with it. They're not in a transformative relationship with it. They're in a fascistic Nazi relationship with it. It's my friend Jürgen Rasmussen often says,
I've heard him say
that. His Nazi tendencies thing. People are trying to push stuff out. So I'll give you an example. Let me give you an example from myself. I used to have a lot of social anxiety stuff going on, which is 99.99999% gone. Now, a little while ago, I'd have said it was 100% gone. But then I noticed something subtle, what I call a micro aversion. So when I meet people for the first time, there's a tendency, like a micro tendency to just withdraw. It's only like a minute, like a blip, like a moment that just, and then I'll move through it. Now it's such a small thing, I didn't even notice it was going on for a long time, compared to how I used to be, which was a massive desire to withdraw. So once I noticed this going on, I wanted to be present with it. I want to know something about it. I don't want to judge it and go, oh no, I've got to get rid of this. It's a terrible thing. So I do almost like a parts work thing with it, where I would notice it and go, so what does this want? What do I want in that moment where I'm withdrawing? And I want to be honest with myself, because this is a thing that most people are not able to do. They don't want to say the thing, the thing that they hate, for example. People never want to admit to themselves they're afraid and stuff like that. They don't want to admit their shortcomings. They don't want to admit their weaknesses. So they never look clearly at them. They're not able to look squarely at them. So I tune into that part, that aspect of self, and think, well, what do I want in that moment? And I feel my way in, and the answer comes up. I want to hide. Now that doesn't fit with my self-image or how I would like my self-image to be as a guy that wants to hide. I want to have a self-image where I'm a guy that goes out in the world and kicks some ass, right? I don't want to be the guy that hides. But I don't want to deny that, because if I deny it, if I can't look at that without judgment and go, okay, so there's an aspect of me that wants to hide. Now, I don't want to fall for the trick that my mind wants to play on me, which wants to tell me that's me. Oh my God, I'm weak, I'm terrible, I'm horrible, I'm whatever. It's not me, that's not me, that's an aspect of self. It's a trance that can come up, if you like. But that's not me, because I go way beyond that. So once I noticed this, I wanted to start to just notice it every time it would come up. So when it would be there, I go, there's that part that wants to hide. Now here's the second part, and I go, and there is a part of me that wants to reach out and connect. So I want to hold those two opposing aspects of self without judgment in a broader field of being. Now I know that every time I do that, I have a belief in what I call the generative faculty. There's a deep intelligence that everybody keeps within them that wants to do life better, right? When we're kids, it's switched on, it's ramped up to the max. This is why we're learning. We're picking stuff up, we're absorbing it. And we pick up a bunch of crap on the way, but we still pick it up and internalize it because we want to be better. We want to be more effective. So I want to be aware that my generative faculty is there. And if my generative faculty can be present with the moment, with what's going on, my, Erickson would call it the unconscious mind, can start generating new ways of being and new solutions. Now, if I drop in, and I was telling somebody about this approach, this is just one approach that I might use. I was telling somebody about this approach, and they said, yeah, I do something similar. I see the part, and then I tell myself, but what I really want is that. And I said, no, that's different. You're claiming that what you really want is this, and this isn't what you want, and you're taking sides on the parts, and you're valuing one part more than another. And that stops you being able to be present in a genuinely transformative way, because you're struggling with stuff, you're fighting, you're in conflict with yourself. And nobody can really do good quality self-change work when they're in conflict with themselves. Right? And this is the biggest block, because it's so easy to go, that part of me is bad, it's ruining my life, I hate it, it's weak, it's crap, I want to get rid of it. And we've already taken sides, which means we're already struggling with ourselves. And it almost never works. You can bury a part or an aspect of self doing that, but it's very difficult to truly transform that part or aspect of self while you're in judgment upon it, while you're struggling with it, while you're fighting it, while you're hating on it. And this is one of the things I took a long time to get, and I got a lot better at self-change when I stopped hating on the parts of me or the aspects of self that I wanted to change. And that's not easy to do, because you go, well, that's why I want to change them, because I hate them, right? Or I don't like them. I used to think hate was a strong word. I go, well, I don't hate those things, but I was just bullshitting myself. There were things about myself I hated, I was hating on, And that's not, that in itself can be an origin of negative self-talk. Because if you're hating on a part of yourself, then you're going to say crappy things to yourself about yourself. That's partly an origin. But if you go, yeah. That's why I love shadow work. I love the idea of shadow work, like Jungian shadow work. What's the stuff? What are the things about yourself you're not willing to be with? What are the experiences you're not willing to be with? What are the thoughts you're not willing to be with? Once you're willing to be with all those things that you were not willing to be with before, then you can really enter into a transformative relationship with aspects of yourself. So that's a huge, huge thing. And this is part of what slowing down is about. You naturally slow down, because while we're still hating on aspects of ourselves, we just want to get them out as quickly as possible. It's like, burn it out of me, get rid of it. I want to get rid of that horrible thing. And it just ends up perpetuating it. What you resist persists, as they say. What you cannot be with will not let you be. And this is the single biggest thing that gets in the way of people effectively changing. And also with clients as well, because clients will turn up and they go, I need to get rid of this, it's horrible, I'm a piece of shit, whatever it is. And one of the things I want to do is slow them down and have them shift into a state where they can be present with what's going on with themselves without judgment. You know, if you look at a 6-step reframe, this is built into a 6-step reframe, but it's built in at a superficial level. Thank that part for blah, 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 and people just go through the motions. They don't really connect with equanimity, you know, non-judgment. You know, Bandler's big thing is about curiosity, right? Bandler's got this thing about curiosity. The reason I think that's powerful is because you cannot be curious about something while you're judging it, while you're being critical of it, right? It's a mutually exclusive state. If you're genuinely curious, you're genuinely present with something without judgment. You know? I think that's a powerful thing.
Real powerful. Yeah, I just zoned out quite a bit there.
Yeah, you're a zony kind of a guy, though. I've noticed this before.
Well, have you noticed that? Like, see, that's the thing. I can zone out easy.
Yeah.
When I was I first heard about hypnosis when I was, I think, 6 years old. I can still see the bookshelf was at my grandma's house. It was Dave Ellman's hypnotherapy book. So I was 6, trying to hypnotize stuffed animals, friends, and it's pretty much, this is something I've wanted ever since I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I came to hypnosis and stuff quite late, and by accident, really, you know, around the houses, all through looking for solutions for myself in life, changing the way I was experiencing life and being in the world and all of that. So that's... I
think a lot of people have, a lot of therapists, they want to, like you said, they want to fix themselves, they want to take this out and get rid of it. But, you know, I actually like the idea of equanimity. I first, I think, learned of the concept when I was going through Igor Ledochowski's Beyond Self-Hypnosis. He's big on mindfulness. I don't know if you've seen the product, but he's big on mindfulness and using equanimity to basically look at the dark, like you said, the shadow parts where you get scared of. So he's big about using equanimity to kind of sit with everything. And he basically calls it just sitting with it.
Yeah, it's powerful. You see, this is the thing. Everyone's like, got to do. This is what I mean about getting into the change, being present with stuff rather than trying to charge through it. You know, to change something, you have to be present with it and bring certain transformative energies and relationships to it. But the irony is all the time you're trying to change it, you can't do that. So there's a kind of paradoxical thing going on there. It's the old, you know, the Chinese finger cuffs thing. People get caught in the trap. It's the single biggest challenge in doing change work with other people is getting them to get out of that finger cuffs trap. Get them to get out of the neediness, the desperation to change. Get them to slow down, be present. You know.
I've noticed if I'm in that desperate mode, I might be wanting to work on one thing, and then another part will pop in. These other, like maybe a different voice will pop in, and that's when I get the overwhelmed feeling, which is in the chest, overwhelmed, and like it's almost like a cacophony of voices. I'm like, fuck it.
Yeah.
It's easy to avoid things.
Yeah. I mean, for myself, I do one thing at a time. I will spend a number of weeks on one thing, you know, and I will stay with that thing, and I will make gains progressively across those few weeks with that thing. And then something else will usually pop up that becomes, you know, that pops up to another priority. And sometimes the thing I've been working on, I'll have made some progress with it. It might not be all the way where I want it to be, but it'll go on the back burner. I'll come back to it maybe a year later or 2 years later or whatever. Like the thing I was saying about that kind of micro aversion, I thought that I'd done everything I needed to with regard to my connection patterns with other human beings. You know, because I had crappy connection patterns. So
sounding like a robot right now.
Say again?
You're sounding like a robot right now, talking about the connection. You know, you were actually sounded like you mentioned this guy earlier, Parsons from Big Bang Theory, when you're talking about the connection patterns with other humans.
Right? Yeah. I mean, you know, that's the way I looked at it. I mean, it's a way of framing it. What I mean by patterns is we just have habituated ways of being in the world. We call it a repertoire, if you like. I love the idea of a repertoire. You know, comedians have a repertoire. They have a bunch of jokes and stuff like that, and they go up and they do their repertoire. And most of what they do on stage is built around their repertoire, and they're going to improvise a bit around it. And I think that's how human beings do life. We build a repertoire. We pick bits up from here, there, little skits, little routines that we run unconsciously around how we engage with people. You know, people are patterned. That's the way it goes. So we don't show up in every situation and just create afresh. We're going to show up through our patterns and stuff like this. It's true the other way around as well. 99% of what you come up against in somebody else is just their patterns, their habitual ways of being in the world. People take them personally all the time. They take other people's crap personally. You know, but most of it isn't personal. It's just people doing their stuff. So I have my stuff. I have my patterns, my ways of being in the world, whatever you want to call them. And they were default responses. Trances, response sets, patterns, scripts, whatever. Different people have different metaphors. I put something up about this the other day, and somebody said, what did they say? They said, you're talking about, and they had another label for it. And I'm like, yeah, call it what you want, you know. We don't create brand new, fresh behavior in each and every moment. It's largely coming from our repertoire. So my old repertoire, going back to when I was a kid and stuff like that, was pretty poor. It wasn't good. It was filled with a lot of fear. My interactions with other human beings were fear-based for various reasons. And they weren't serving me. They weren't serving me well in the world. I used to deal with them back then through drinking and self-medicating in other ways, because then, you know, I would be free from threat processing. I would process threat in every interaction with every human being. That's what would be going on underneath the surface for me. So I did a lot of work for many years, initially quite crudely, to make shifts, and I got better and better and better. And I also, you know, I didn't just do it in a box. I went out in the world and did it. So I did stuff like improv theatre. A lot of the stuff about going and doing magic and mentalism was about me going out into the world and doing stuff with people, engaging with people. So I thought I'd done most of the work on this. But, you know, recently this pattern came back up. Yeah, so there was a pattern interrupt there and a half.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we never really talked about self-talk here. But
it's kind of funny. Yeah, we got off on that.
Yeah, but really, one of the things about self-talk is self-talk comes from somewhere, right? It's almost like a symptom. It's not a cause. People think that it's the cause of problems. Now, it has an effect. It has an effect, but it's not the primary cause. You know, self-talk will come from, I believe, the sense we're making of the situation. It comes from stuff that we're carrying around with us, deeper held beliefs and this kind of thing. So I rarely do stuff around addressing self-talk. I'm more interested in where the self-talk comes from.
When you say you're more interested in the self-talk, one thing I did the other day, I was doing some self-talk, and I think I forget what the question I asked it. I just had some dialogue and asked it or first I took the self-talk and I would try to minimize it so it wasn't, didn't sting as much, or didn't have as much of an emotional sting. Then I had a dialogue with it, and I basically was asking it, we were trying to get to a part, trying to figure out what the part was, and I actually did a quick round of core transformation on it, which, by the way, is an amazing process. I found out for me, when you earlier you mentioned about being, instead of going through it, being in it, and really not having the superficial, thank you for doing what you do, blah, 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 but with core transformation and in conjunction with self-talk seems like it could be a good winning combination, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, it could be. I'll give a couple of pro tips on self-talk, at least from my perspective, the way I look at it. You can do stuff with submodalities and all of that kind of thing. I never do. I do want to recognize that self-talk is just talk. And that's a really important thing, because we can think a thought. In order to be upset by a thought or negatively impacted by a thought, there's two things that need to happen. We need to think the thought, or if you want to think of it as self-talk, we need to do the self-talk. But then we need to take it seriously as well. And now the issue isn't necessarily, people think the issue is thinking it, the fact that it's come up. But the real issue is taking it seriously. And this is one of the reasons that affirmations don't work, is people try and replace a negative self-talk with a positive self-talk. But still, they don't actually take the new piece of self-talk seriously. It's a thought that isn't taken seriously. So, if I think, oh, I'm such a useless piece of crap, if I think that thought, so long as it's just a thought, it's no big deal. It becomes a big deal when I think that thought is a fact. It's not just a thought, it's a fact. It isn't that I'm thinking, oh, I'm such a useless piece of crap. It's that I'm believing that I'm a useless piece of crap in that moment. And if I go, oh, that's negative self-talk, I need to do positive self-talk, and I say, I'm a wonderful and talented human being. Now, I have a different piece of self-talk, but the thing is, I'm not taking that seriously. That I'm not mistaking for a fact. That I'm going, well, that is a piece of self-talk, but that other one's a fact. Right? So the issue isn't that I'm telling myself that I'm a piece of crap. The issue is that I'm believing it. I'm mistaking that thought for a fact. Now,
so you're believing it as what I think you've heard before. Got to plug this phone in as kind of a reality tunnel, I think is what you would call it.
Yeah, I call it a reality tunnel, a component of a hypnotic loop, a trance, whatever it might be. But to drive that, I have to believe the damn thing is a fact and not just a thought. So here's the thing. If I don't know that it's just a thought, then that can be a problem. So it's useful to go in and go, this is not to convince myself it's just a thought, but if I can do any processing. So Byron Katie, she has the work, right? So you could do the work on that. I'm a useless piece of crap. Well, is that true? Can you absolutely know that that's true? No, I cannot know that it's true. Who would you be without that thought? How would you be without that thought? So she's got some great tools. I love Byron Katie's work. I think it's very, very good, very powerful. And on another level, there's even if you just catch the thought and you go from I'm a useless piece of crap to I am telling myself I'm a useless piece of crap. Right now, you start to reframe it as telling yourself. But overall, if you really get that your thoughts are just thoughts, if you really get it, and I don't mean intellectually get it, but I mean see it in the moment. Because a lot of people get the theory, oh yeah, they're just thoughts, they're not reality. But in the moment, they're acting as if those thoughts are reality. And that's the problem. They're not seeing that their thoughts are not reality. So I also have, that's my pro tip number one. And it's an easy thing to just say like that, but it's a different thing because a lot of people say, oh, right, James, I get that. So how do I do it then? How do I see it as, well, there isn't really anything to do. It's just actually, if you say you get it, but, then the truth is you don't get it. You understand the theory of it, but you're not really seeing it, especially in the moment. So that's kind of my first pro tip is really start looking and going, my God, my thoughts, these are thoughts, these are not facts. And if I were going to go, if I really wanted to assist somebody in connecting with that, I'm going to say a lot more about that and point them in a lot more useful directions than just going bleh and saying that thing. So I'm aware that it needs to go beyond that. And my second pro tip around thinking and negative thinking, people contrast negative thinking with positive thinking. And I think this is a mistake because I had a client a little while ago who said, I try and think positively. I keep telling myself it's going to be all right. But I said, well, don't. Don't keep telling yourself it's going to be all right because you're lying. You're lying in so much as you don't know it's going to be all right. You don't know the future, right? So if you're trying to tell yourself it's going to be all right, I said to him, your inner mind knows that you're lying. It's just not going to work. And a lot of positive thinking is just an attempt to argue with reality as you see it. It's an argument with the negative thinking, and it still buys into the idea that one of the things is true and that these thoughts have power and all of this. Yeah.
It's a conflict.
Right, exactly. And it doesn't work. So I'm interested in resource thinking rather than positive thinking.
Oh, I like that.
Right? So I'll give you a way of making sense of this. If I'm walking down the street and I'm going to meet some friends somewhere and we're going to have a barbecue and it starts raining, positive thinking, like negative thinking might be like, oh, it's raining. Why does this have to happen to me? This has ruined my day. It's typical, just when I want to relax and have some fun with my friends, this has to happen and ruin everything, right? That's negative thinking. Positive thinking might go, everything's fine. Everything's fine. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. I'm not really getting wet. It's not really a problem, right? And it's trying to argue yourself out of the fact that it's raining and you're all wet and your barbecue's going to get rained off, right? So, but resource thinking is going, oh, okay, it's raining and I'm getting wet. Okay, that's too bad because we're probably not going to be able to have a barbecue, but we're going to find some other ways of having fun. We're going to have a barbecue another time. And you know what? Even if my clothes get wet, I can still dry off. There's probably some trees that we can find to go and stand under. And they're still my friends, so I'm sure there's plenty of ways we can have fun. So that's resource thinking because it's not an argument with reality. It's not trying to tell myself that it's not raining. It's not trying to tell myself that just blindly everything will be all right. It's acknowledging what's occurring, but having resourceful frames around it,
I like that. In the book, just a quick side note, that book I was reading, it was talking about the question of, like, what else? Like, what else can I get out of the situation? What else can I be happy about? Not, they said in the book, you don't want to ask the question, what can I be happy about? It's almost like it narrows it down. It almost implies, like, there's nothing to be happy about. When you say, what else can I be happy about? You get more of a flood of stuff coming into your head.
Right. See, I love that kind of thing. One of the best things I ever got from NLP, this was life-changing for me, was outcome thinking. Just learning to think in outcomes. And when I first was studying NLP, I made a commitment to myself that I would become an outcome thinker. That I would replace my old thinking. I'm the guy that used to walk around at my place of work with a loop in my head saying, I hate this job, I hate this job, I hate this job, I hate this job. That was my loop that I ran in my head. Guess what? I hated the job. And I'm not saying it was a great job. If I'd have walked around going, I love this job, I love this job, I love this job, that would have been a lie, I'd have been arguing with my reality and I wouldn't have got anywhere. But in the end, I saw it for what it was and I thought, okay, so what do I want to have happen? What do I want to get from this? What's the direction that I could move in that would improve things right now, considering that I'm going to be here all day? So, and I started to do this, and I started to do habitual outcome thinking, and I condition myself. It's like doing a martial arts drill. It's like doing a Wing Chun drill or something. Do it repeatedly, and it builds it into your muscle memory, into your procedural memory. So I wanted to build outcome thinking. Now, outcome thinking is mostly using questions to direct you towards outcomes. It's not arguing with reality. It's just pointing your brain in the direction of making a difference, creating something, moving forward, rather than going, oh, this is terrible. Why does this happen to me? Which is like what I used to be like. Everything was, oh, typical. Why is it always blah, 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 and just crap thinking all the time. But just that choice, right, okay. So what would need to happen to move in a more positive direction now? Habituating questions like this, asking them over and over and over and over and over until they start to become natural and defaults. That's the thing that's one of the things that worked for me.
How long did it take for you to get the outcome-based thinking where it became automatic?
Not very long. Couple of weeks.
So is it something that you had to remind yourself
yes.
to constantly do?
Yep. I come from a martial arts background. I'm used to drilling skills. So when I came to NLP and hypnosis, I just assumed I would have to drill skills. Everyone kept telling me it would be unconsciously installed in me, but I didn't buy it because I came from a martial arts background and I just took it to be skills. This is skills. This is, instead of being skills with your hands or with your footwork or with your body, it's skills with it's mental patterning. It's just patterned in. So I did some crude stuff. It's not the only approach. There are many, many ways to approach things. There's facilitation-based stuff, process-based stuff, but good old-fashioned skills drilling is not to be looked down upon, I think.
You know what it is? A lot of people in this community, I think a lot of them are relying on the easy thing. The marketers, they tell the people the easy thing. And you mentioned something earlier about how you'll take weeks to work on a problem.
Yeah. A
lot of people, I think we're taught that everything should be instantaneous. Like, boom, we go in, problem, magic, solved. Doesn't quite always work like that.
Yeah, and what does it mean to solve the problem anyway, you know? Somebody's got a way of being in the world, which they've had for a long time, it's habituated. It's actually functional. It may suck, it may not be what they want, but it's actually functional. It fits their life, it's well adapted. The chances of creating something perfect right like that in the moment without any kind of adjustment needing to happen are often pretty slim. It can happen with simple problems. One of the things that NLP is guilty of is taking simply structured problems from a neurological perspective, stuff like phobias, post-traumatic stress stuff, that can be pretty horrible, and there can be some more complex stuff holding it in. But on a basic level, things that are just kind of conditioned in a simple way like that, particularly through a single event, they're actually quite easy to take apart. But that doesn't mean all problems are the same. It doesn't mean that. Some problems have greater levels of complexity to them from a neurological perspective. There's more parts of the brain involved, different parts of the brain involved. And I think some change work approaches are guilty of saying, hey, look, we can knock out this phobia in 5 minutes. So we can knock anything out in 5 minutes. We can change anything in 5 minutes. I often say to people who are quick fix power hypnotists, I say, could you take a boy of 5 years old and turn him into the man he'll be at 30 with one hypnosis intervention? And they go, well, no. Why not? Right? Why not? Well, the truth is because there's a whole bunch of learning, changing, and growing that needs to go on. Because that's what changing your way of being in the world is about: learning, changing, and growing. So while there are certain easy wins we can get, to try and make out that everything is going to be like an easy win and doesn't require that we can bypass people's learning, changing, growing mechanisms and do some kind of magic juju, it just doesn't fly for me in my experience. And I know there'll be people out there that watch this and they go, oh, well, James, that's because you're no good, because you're a crap hypnotist and all of that. I've heard it all before, and that's absolutely fine. I also know, as a little personal rant of mine, that very few people that claim these miraculous success rates have any kind of thorough way of following up with clients.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And a lot of people, I think they have the cheaters and all this, don't do client work.
Yeah, this is the thing. The problem with the hypnosis world and the NLP world. I love hypnosis. I love NLP. I think both those areas. I think there's a phenomenal amount of high value stuff in NLP, and I think there's a lot of bullshit in there as well. And it's a shame because there's powerful tools. There's stuff that we can do that really make differences in people's lives, in our own lives, powerful differences. But everything gets simplified and turned into, like you say, the quick fix solution. Everything gets made into some magical cure. And then you get these egos strutting around who all want to claim to be the king of the hill and claim to be some kind of juju master who can change anything in any moment or make anyone do anything against their will. That's the other thing. It's crap.
There's so many egos, especially stationists have a lot of egos, and there's certain trainers that have a lot of egos. And I tell people, people act like I'm a world famous hypnotist. Who gives a shit? You're a world famous hypnotist in a very small community.
Right? Yeah. Yep, exactly. It's absolutely true. It's a tiny, tiny community. And here's the thing: if I've often thought, for some people, I'm not going to name names, but there's some people out there claiming to like have these amazing hypnosis skills, can make anyone do anything, and yet they make their entire living inside of this tiny niche hypnosis community. If they've got that much power, why aren't they out there busting up stuff all over the world? Why are they selling hypnosis products when it doesn't make sense to me?
Have them rob a bank. I would never rob a bank, but these people, it's funny, when I do street hypnosis, I haven't done it in a while, but anytime I have done it, I would dispel a myth. People go, oh, you can make me do something? And I'd have a tip jar there. I'm like, seriously, if you think I can make people rob a bank, do you think I'd be out here getting tips? I'm like, no, I'd have people shoveling me money.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it doesn't. And, and I know a lot of people out there want to believe it does. And I know there's a lot of, again, from the marketing end, there's people who are very happy to sell to those people who want to believe that they're going to get superhuman powers to control other people against their will. But, it's a shame because there's awesome stuff that can really, really help people make profound shifts in their lives. But it's not an exact science either.
It's an art.
It's an art. I work with people. It's what emerges from the work remains to be seen. We don't know the exact solution it's going to get. If I can move them from being in a place where they've got a problem and it's undermining them to a place where they're feeling better, they're getting better results in their lives, that's a fantastic thing. I don't know specifically what that feeling better is going to look like ahead of time or what those better results are going to be ahead of time. Just one of the things I often say when it comes to doing change work with people, everybody talks about success rate. What's your success rate? What's your success rate? I never think about success rate. I think about satisfaction rate, right? Because success, how do you measure the success? Well, the only way you can measure it is whether the client is satisfied or not, right? And I've worked with people who have been immensely satisfied with the work that we've done, even though they didn't actually get the original thing they came in for. I've had that happen many times. And often the thing they came in for isn't really a big deal anymore anyway, because something else came up. I'm not doing a bait and switch with people. I just let it go where it goes, according to them. I don't have an agenda. But, I've had people come in to stop smoking, and they've carried on smoking, and yet they've stopped hating on themselves. And that's been a bigger thing for them. And maybe at some point, when they're a bit more grounded, they'll go, do you know what? I don't need these anyway, and they'll chuck them away. So
I quit smoking. It'll be a year in August. I was actually at HypnoTalk Live in Vegas. We have a lot of mischievous people in this community. I'm walking around smoking. Somebody's like, "Here, need a lighter?" I'm going to break my cigarette. So finally, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I quit smoking about a year ago. And that's the thing I like about this community. It's like you said, you got into hypnosis, NLP to help yourself. Years ago, I dealt with severe depression. This is actually, I'm at the point now where I can admit it, but I think it was 21. I tried killing myself, had a shotgun to my head. I was severely depressed. And the thing is, I think it took, part of it was I was on medication for a little while where a lot of hypnotists try to say, you know what, stay away from modern medicine. Bad idea. Everything can be a person. I use a lot of meditation, self-hypnosis, different change work, even some woo-woo stuff. But for me, I'm like, hey, the woo-woo, even if it, like you've seen my Facebook posts, there's a lot of woo-woo stuff I don't like, but some of the stuff helped me, and I'm like, hey, it sure beats being super depressed.
Yeah. That's the thing. I've got nothing against woo-woo stuff. I do actually. That's a lie. I do have something against woo-woo stuff. I have something against people making claims, absolute claims about things. If something works, great. Like I come from martial arts background, Tai Chi. There's a lot of energy work heads there, and even when I'm working with people, I drop into a mode where it's as if I'm using energy. I feel like I am, but I don't claim that I am. Probably not. It's probably just the way I'm organizing my experience in that moment, but it has a particular effect. It creates a particular, I don't know what's going on. Whatever's going on is beyond words. I don't make a claim to know. I'm not going, yeah, I'm using chi energy. Maybe one day somebody will discover that I am. I don't really care. It doesn't make any difference either way. It doesn't make any difference. I just go into the zone and I do a particular thing and it gets particular results. And I don't want to make a claim and go, this is proof of anything. And that's where I get kind of hung up. I'm very skeptical about almost everything. I'm like, well, how do you know? As soon as somebody gets absolutistic about something, I'm going to go, how do you know? It
might just be your superb linguistic skills. You being a Brit, and you guys and all of your superior linguistic skills.
I don't know. I did a philosophy degree way back. Anglo-American analytical philosophy tradition, which is about rigorous thinking, and that's massive part of my background. Now, I talked about two modes of mind earlier. I also value experiential stuff, just immersing yourself, not asking questions, exploring. But I value both these modes of mind, and I think that they serve and complement each other like a yin-yang relationship. But at no point, so I'm willing to go fully into a reality and operate from that reality, which might be an energy healing reality. But I'm also willing to step back and go, and there's absolutely no evidence that there's any real energy healing going on here at all. It may be working by other means. And I'm a great believer in, whatever. There's a quote which I don't actually think comes from Werner Heisenberg. It's probably just made up. These things float round and Einstein said this and all of that. But it's not any more complex than you think. It's more complex than you can think. Right? So if I'm doing something where I'm incorporating like an energy work aspect to it, and that's the reality tunnel that I'm in that moment, I'm under no illusions that is a reality tunnel. It's a map. It's not the territory. And whatever is really going on is more complex than I can think, right? I don't know what it is. I'm not going to pretend I know. That would be very arrogant of me, I think.
You got to go with the flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man, it looks like I'm starting to run out of time with you. I could talk to you for hours on end. So we're going to start finishing up. Any projects you got? First off, what's your website?
Oh, yeah. I've got two websites, jamestripp.co.uk, where people can book me for coaching, one-on-one self-development work and that kind of thing. And the other website is hypnosiswithouttrance.com. And that's where people can learn hypnosis, brain wrangling, juju skills and that kind of thing, the other stuff. So those are my two areas. Projects coming up. I've got something coming up which is a live online training called the Freestyle Mind Shifters Toolkit, which may already have passed by the time this video reaches the world. I don't know, but that's the project I'm primarily engaged with at the moment.
I'm going to try. I should be able to get this podcast up soon, so I'm going on vacation in 2 days, and I will bust my ass to get it up.
Okay, well, that's cool. So that's coming up, Freestyle Mind Shifters Toolkit. You can find out about that on the live events page on Hypnosis Without Trance. And it is about, I mentioned earlier about a lot of people learn processes, and then they run the process. I call these people process jockeys, which is maybe a mean thing. I've been a process jockey. There's nothing wrong with that. But this is a program about going beyond that. And being able to engage with people in assisting them in making changes and roll with what's really happening in the moment and having an array of tools that you can apply and the understandings that back the tools up. Because a lot of the time people learn processes, but they don't really understand what's underneath the hood, why that process works, what it is that it's trying to achieve, what each maneuver within the process is trying to do in terms of creating a mind shift. So that's what that's going on.
So what's the price on that again? I wanted to attend it, but I want to be on vacation. I saw the price. It's in pounds.
Yeah, it's about it's got 1/3 off, so it's about £58, I think, before the event, and then during it, there's going to be replays so people can jump on, and the price nudges up a bit. Unlike things I've done in the past, I am pulling it down. It's not going to be available ongoing. And another going beyond that, I'm going to be redoing at some point very soon. I'm going to be redoing Hypnosis Without Trance in its entirety, because what it's ended up being is unfocused. There's lots of different products and lots of different things. People show up and they go, well, I don't know what to buy. Should I get this or should I go in that direction? And this is the effect of things being added over time. So I want to take everything down and refocus it and create an entirely new offering. And that's going to happen at some point soon.
Now, I've actually got an idea. I got many ideas, but I'm going to keep them to one single idea. I don't know if this is something you could do, but you know me, I'm obviously a marketer. I love marketing. I love hypnosis. It goes hand in hand. What if it's something I'll throw out here, don't have to do it. I was thinking, would it be possible we could maybe do a short webinar in the future where you could demonstrate everything you're going to be teaching on me, maybe help me to fix one particular change. And
yeah.
If people buy, I'll say this now. If people buy or register for his training, we'll do something in the future where he helps me to overcome some kind of limitation, and then I'll give it. You can give it to him, and if you want, you can edit it and say, like, do put a little letter subtitles on the screen saying, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, that's possible. I'm not going to make any commitment right now because one of the things that's an issue at the moment is being constantly on the road. So, we're changing location all the time and changing time zones all the time, and different things are coming up. So that is a possibility. It's a very, very cool idea. I would be very interested in doing that. Whether it gets tied to this particular event or not is another question, around the timing. But certainly with regard to doing some live change work kind of stuff, that's something I would be very interested in doing because I don't have anything like that out there, really. So yeah, cool idea.
You know what? That's the benefit of having a hypnosis. Actually, you know what? Since we're finishing a podcast out, I will go like this, show you the bookshelf right here. Mm-hmm. Here's the benefit of having a podcast where you review products and trainings is, this needs to be cleaned up. But you've got Erickson, Therapeutic Conversations, everything. The only thing I don't see on there is a DVD set of Hypnosis Without Trance.
Yeah, the times have gone whereby I have physical products, but yeah. But I can send something your way. I know that one of the things that's going to happen though is the stuff, whatever I send your way is going to cease to exist in that form at some point soon. In fact, and this is the first time I've spoken about this publicly to the world, but there's going to be a refocusing of Hypnosis Without Trance. And that's what it is. It's a refocusing because at the moment it's too many different kind of directions. I want to get them all melded together.
Don't worry about it. Don't feel like I'm trying to pressurize you because honestly, see all that stuff there, that's one of the problems of a lot of people that love hypnosis, NLP. We want to take everything on. That's what happens. A lot of people, hypnotists, this is what you should not do. You don't put shit on a shelf. We tend to take techniques, put them on a shelf, and not use them. You have to do stuff. Absolutely,
yeah. It's one of the things I often recommend is people, instead of jumping straight in and doing a big long course, is to go and do something like a weekend workshop in something very specific, like an eye movement style intervention or even tapping, and if you want to start working with clients, learn one simple thing, recognize it's going to have its limitations, but get really good at that and then start adding more and more stuff on top. But nobody does it that way.
This has been good. Anybody, if you have any questions, comments, criticism, or whatever, you can send me hate mail. Drop a comment below, and I got some links. It'll either be above this video or below it, where you can learn more about James and all of his wonderful stuff he's got going on.
Cool, yeah. Love to get questions going on, and I'll jump in and answer where I can as well. And Antonio, you have an awesome vacation.
Oh, I will. I'm going to be in Hotlanta. It's going to be nice and mucky over there.
Yeah, cool. So, okay. Yeah.
Everybody, it's been great, and I need to get ready for vacation before my girlfriend kicks my ass.
Cool. Okay, Antonio, thanks for having me on the podcast, and we'll no doubt speak again soon.
Adios.
Adios.